I'm Jane Sterk, leader of the Green Party of BC. Welcome to our talk show, Green BC, Solutions for a Better Future. It's my pleasure to welcome Donna Morton, who has so many titles, I don't know where to begin, but the Center for Integral Economics is one, and you're also CEO of First Power, so we want to find out about those things, and I thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't we start where you want to start? Do you want to start with the Center for Integral Economics? Tell us about that.
Sure. So CIE started almost 12 years ago, and the idea was to create an organization in Canada that systemically looked at solutions to sustainability issues across all of the divides. So how do you get business and nonprofits working together? How do you align the market and profit with values and structures that don't harm people or places? So it was about this holistic, integral kind of view of what does it take to deliver jobs in an economy that doesn't trash the place. We did a lot of the pre-work on the BC carbon tax. We worked with politicians of every stripe. We worked with businesses, NGOs to try and rally support and do some grassroots education about market-based approaches to sustainability. And for me, if you don't put a price on carbon, there's nothing we will ever do to kind of wring it out of the way our economy works.
Right. Well, we're on side with that. I assume that when you were talking about putting a price on carbon, you did encourage them to have it at a higher level than that what they finally chose.
Absolutely. I'm much more in the $60 range for putting an adequate price on carbon. And I think there's tons of room, even for British Columbians to accept a higher price on carbon. It needs to happen. And unless we price carbon adequately, we're not actually going to see our economy moving away from fossil fuel and toxic kind of energy production. Yeah. It's just not going to happen.
And we agree. And, you know, sometimes people think that the price on carbon is just about the price on carbon, but it really is about leveling the playing field so that renewable energy can be part of the solution, so that it's competitive for a company to actually come in and create a project. And so people just see it as another tax, but it really is a whole way of reframing how we would approach our economy to make it run better, to make it behave better.
And done properly, the revenues get recycled to be reinvested in things like mass transit and creating a clean energy portfolio. Right. So you don't just create a slush fund, which is another point of departure between the current carbon tax and my version of a good policy. Yeah. You actually target you target the revenue so that you end up with the outcomes you want. So you tax the bad things and you untax good things. You untax jobs and you certainly untax the renewable sector, which I care enormously about for many reasons, including that I'm now the CEO of a renewable energy company.
Yeah. So why don't we move there? Tell us about First Power and the motivation behind First Power and what you're trying to achieve through this organization.
Well, I think my personal motivation for First Power started in a series of conversations in Ottawa about a decade ago. A bunch of people saying, I can't believe we have hundreds of communities in Canada that are actually powered with diesel generators. So diesel generators running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for communities' heat, light, and power. And lots of them are First Nations communities. Yeah. So you're talking about communities with very limited resources, burning through massive amounts of fossil fuels for absolutely everything they do in life. And so the concept was, what if we could kick out the diesel generators, replace them with 100% renewable energy systems, sort of customized to the renewable energy possibilities in a given community? And then what if the community ran the energy systems? So it's not outside non-Aboriginal people landing technology again on First Nations communities, but instead having the leaders in those communities really drive where the project goes. What kind of jobs do you want? What kind of economic development do you want? So that you use reinventing the energy platform for remote communities as an opportunity to reinvent the entire community. So we work with hereditary chiefs and kids and everybody in the communities to say, what matters most to you right now? What are your biggest issues in addition to energy? And then how do we have the energy project work in a way that has this kind of ripple effect. So the main project we're doing right now with the Hashquit Nation is governed by the hereditary chiefs, has approval from elders, from kids, from people across the entire community, and it will replace the diesel over 5 years with biomass, wind, and very small-scale microhydro that doesn't touch the fish. It will create jobs in 3 different sort of categories, one related to the energy project itself. The second will be a line of food products that advertise that they're made with 100% renewable energy.
Oh, wow.
And the third is an eco-energy tourism opportunity for Hashquit. Hashquit is right across from Hot Springs Cove off Tofino. They get 15,000 tourists just off their dock every year. And right now their revenue stream is 0. So what if you turn this beautiful place into an eco-energy tourism destination, show tourists what 100% renewable energy looks like, and then use that as another kind of economic opportunity for the community.
So what's your role in that? Are you a consultancy, or are you the producer of the hard goods that create the energy, or are you an educational organization?
Yes. I mean, in essence, we're the co-developer with the community, and what we're trying to do is create a model that's very different from the independent power producers model. For me, IPPs, they suss out lands, particularly First Nation lands. They walk in and they say, here's your resources, here's a little tiny revenue stream for you, here's a few token jobs for your trouble, thank you very much. And we'll accommodate you if we have to. And our model is completely different. Our model is, who are you? What's your tradition? What are your values? What are the teachings of your ancestors? Okay, now how does that foundation of who you are as a culture get rolled into an energy project that allows communities to stay intact and honor everything they are and everything they want to be through an energy project that is 100% renewable? So we're a co-developer, and we stay with the community while the jobs get created, while business incubators get built, while training and capacity happens, and we help facilitate all of those things. We have partnerships with UBC, with Vancouver Island University. We have another partnership with BC Hydro to make sure that the power purchase agreement pieces work so that the communities have real places to sell the energy that they produce.
So there have to be a massive number of places in BC that could benefit from this orientation and this kind of power development.
There's maybe 100 communities in BC that I think are perfect for what we do. There's hundreds across Canada and thousands around the world. And that's been the really interesting thing, is through this unusual fellowship program that we applied for and won very recently through the Unreasonable Institute, we discovered that actually the appetite for how we approach energy projects resonates around the world. We had people support us from 7 different countries. We got invitations to do projects in Thailand, in India, from Aboriginal communities in Australia, from Haiti. We have someone in the Liberian government that we're talking to right now. And then there's First Nations communities.
There's still somebody to talk to in Liberia.
Indeed. So we think there's thousands of communities that actually could use an approach like this, and we're working right now with a whole bunch of really smart people around the globe to help us figure out, how do you scale this? How do you actually transform something that I think of as this really precious, deep, culture-rich, highly respectful way of approaching an energy project, and then how do you take it out so that it actually could make a difference for up to maybe 1 million people around the globe? Because I actually think that's where this project could go.
So I have a couple of questions that one we'll come back to. So I'm thinking, you're dealing with people who have traditions. A lot of us in British Columbia don't know any traditions, so I'd be curious as to your thoughts about that, the value of tradition, because I think that part of what's wrong with us as a society is that we don't have a sense of tradition. We don't have a memory of having lived in a way that was congruent with what the planet can provide for us. But I wanted to really talk about the Unreasonable Institute, because I know that I supported you, and then you had a little bit of a Facebook conversation with someone that said, why on earth would you apply for something with the Unreasonable Institute? So tell me about the Unreasonable Institute and how you became a fellow and what that means for you in your company.
So it is an oddly named organization, and unreasonable comes from the George Bernard Shaw quote about, a reasonable man adapts himself to fit into the world, but the unreasonable people adapt the world to come closer to their vision of how it could be. So that's the inspiration.
Yeah.
And I have been referred to as unreasonable throughout my life and
wonderful.
career. So, there's some fit. And several people said, unreasonable, absolutely you're unreasonable. But there's many, many reasons that it was really attractive to me when I learned about the Unreasonable Institute. They're designed to help social entrepreneurs scale up. That's what they want to do. They want to help people like me building business
Grow your
ventures.
business.
Yeah, whether nonprofit or for-profit, they're agnostic. They don't care what your vessel is. They care about your vision, your passion, your integrity, and whether they think you've got a project that could touch the lives of 1 million people. That's their metric. And so in our case, getting this fellowship is tremendous. There's a boot camp. I'm going to go to Boulder, Colorado for 6 weeks,
Wow.
June and July. And at the camp, they do tons of work, including they teach you how to give a TED Talk. They have partnerships with TED. They also introduce you to probably 40 of the most interesting people out there that have built really large-scale social ventures. And then they introduce you to a very large, impressive network of funders and financiers that are interested in social ventures. So there's this access to capital.
Deal.
Yeah, so for someone like me running this highly unusual, very integrated, we're trying to alleviate poverty and address climate change and build a completely different model for how community power projects happen. There's not a lot of people on the planet that know how to do that could sort of walk me through a blueprint for how do you build something like that. And I feel like all of a sudden they've built me a Rolodex of all the people I would want to talk to.
Wow.